Morning, everyone. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. It's great to have you with us. We begin our show with the NATO Summit and a series of crucial meetings that could shape the future of the war in Ukraine.
This morning, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy is joining NATO leaders on day 2 of the summit. He's meeting with several leaders, including President Biden. Zelensky's appearance comes one day after NATO said Ukraine does have a future inside the military alliance, but rebuffed his call to set a timeline for membership. Zelenskyy is blasting that decision. Here's what NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg had to say after meeting with Zelenskyy.
Ukraine is now closer to NATO than ever before. Allies reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance and agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan. This will change Ukraine's membership path from a 2-step process to a 1-step process. And we will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree that conditions are met.
In just a few moments, we'll hear from the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. But first, we want to kick things off with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, she is in Lithuania. Good morning to you. So we know that this timeline for Ukraine's NATO membership is not quite what President Zelenskyy would have hoped for. Spell it out. What exactly is the alliance's position? What's Zelensky's reaction here?
Exactly, Joe. President Zelenskyy wasn't shy about his displeasure with what NATO leaders agreed to in that communique yesterday, with those 2 key points spelled out. The fact that they won't be able to even be invited to join until allies can agree, because some security reforms need to be met as well as democratic ones. And also they need to completely agree on what can happen once the war is resolved, of course, as it continues to rage on in Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia. So the timeline for that is not what President Zelenskyy wanted, but he did soften his tone after arriving here, thanking the leaders for their continued support when it comes to weapons and defense spending, but of course saying that he wants to see more, and he wanted that in the short term. So while yesterday focused on what he wasn't able to get, today the focus is going to be all about what Ukraine will be receiving. So we did see his disappointment turn into some gratitude, and I think you'll expect to see that between President Biden and President Zelenskyy when they come face to face just a short couple of hours from now, with President Biden being the one to say over the weekend first he didn't think Ukraine was ready to join NATO yet, again, given this timeline. But the fact that it can be fast-tracked once that invitation is extended was something that Ukrainian officials welcomed, even though, again, they want to say they would like to be more included, though now their status has been upgraded to the fact that they can actually call a meeting with all of the members of NATO at any point as they continue again to defend themselves in the face of Russian aggression, Joe.
So the issue of Ukraine's NATO membership aside, we know Zelenskyy is meeting President Biden this morning along with a host of other leaders. What kind of support is on the table right now?
Yeah, and there's going to be a new announcement from the G7 leaders here, effectively trying to help Ukraine improve its military to deter any further attack from Russia or anyone else. So what that means is really a long-term security commitment, and then also the ability for some NATO countries to negotiate their own bilateral agreements with Ukraine when it comes to security. Here at NATO, they've really wanted to emphasize the fact that the countries are supposed to pledge 2% of their GDP to defense spending, but they want to make sure that that's now seen as a floor, as a minimum, and not the ceiling, so that countries can continue to do more. And we've already seen countries like Germany and France continue to pledge more help here, with some other NATO countries saying they will help to train Ukrainian pilots on those critical F-16 fighter jets that Ukraine had been asking for so long, that the U.S. finally pledged recently, Joe.
And Monica, we understand President Biden will also give a speech later today after the summit. Real quick, what is the message he's expected to deliver?
The big message here is that if you look at when the start of the war took place and what President Putin then expected to happen when he wanted to, in the words of the U.S., divide the West, that the fact that the NATO alliance is stronger than ever, President Biden is going to say, is a clear indication that President Putin has lost that, at least, attempt. Even though the war is ongoing, 500-plus days and counting, they're going to say that the unity here and the show of support for Ukraine has never been stronger. It continues to be unwavering, and that the only person who should really come out of the entirety of this disappointed, in fact, is Vladimir Putin.
Joe. Right. Monica, thanks so much.
Let's now bring in the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, for more on this. Ambassador, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So how do you think the president should address this disappointment from President Zelenskyy over Ukraine's lack of admission into NATO? Is there a way for the peace to be kept here between NATO allies and Ukraine during this period?
Well, I think so, Savannah. As Monica just reported, there's a lot of support. There's incredible support for Ukraine from the NATO alliance. These new weapons that the French have proposed to catch up with what the Brits have already provided. These are long-range weapons that will help Ukraine on the battlefield. The F-16 training that she just mentioned is all good. So that part is very solid. It's the question about NATO membership. It was never, as you've reported, Savannah, it was never about joining this week. That was not on the table. No one proposed that. No one proposes Ukraine joining in the middle of a war. But what the Ukrainians really were hoping to see was the proposal. You know, they wanted to get engaged, and the alliance didn't quite get there. They said, "Well, we'll think about it. It's coming."
So, Ambassador, we saw President Biden play this major role in ushering Sweden into the alliance. But then, of course, we've seen him and his opinion, his words matter when it comes to what will happen with Ukraine. We are anticipating this speech from him in just a few hours, as Monica mentioned. Put in context for us the importance of the president's role on the world stage when it comes to this particular moving forward with support for Ukraine.
Well, you're right, Savannah. I think President Biden played a major role in getting Sweden approved by the Turks. I think he played a major role in that. And he's been a leader. He's been the leader of the coalition, the broad coalition, not just NATO, but across the world. You know, the Japanese and the New Zealanders and the Australians, the South Koreans, they're all there at this summit. And President Biden gets a lot of credit for that broad coalition. He is seen as being maybe a little overly cautious in terms of the invitation to Ukraine to join the alliance. However, the next summit meeting will be in Washington, D.C. next year. And President Biden can lead that charge for an invitation, indeed for membership next year.
How does this all actually impact what we're seeing on the ground in Ukraine? Is NATO in agreement about how to move ahead while they are still in this conflict?
I think they are, Savannah. I think they are very agreed. They're very united, and the weapons commitments are important. The other thing that's important is, as Monica indicated, President Putin has to be disappointed. His strategy, his only strategy, is to try to wait us out, is to try to stay there as long as it takes until we get tired. And what NATO has described, what NATO has committed, what NATO has shown is it's not getting tired. It's increasing the support for Ukraine, and that will continue. That's got to be a problem for President Putin.
Ambassador Bill Taylor, we always appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Now let's head to Vermont, where recovery efforts are just beginning to start this morning after the devastating flooding this week.
The flooding there was unprecedented. The storm that slammed into parts of the state dropped 2 months of rain in just 2 days. Vermont's governor says the flood levels were worse than what the state saw from Tropical Storm Irene 12 years ago.
Vermont's emergency management says teams carried out more than 100 rescues yesterday. But this morning, those floodwaters are starting to recede in some areas, and FEMA's response teams are on the ground beginning to assist with relief efforts.
From the northeast to the southwest now, where the heat dome that has been baking that region for weeks is now expected to expand to other parts of the country. And that heat wave in the south is expected to roll right into next week. We have full coverage of both these stories. In just a moment, we're going to talk with the mayor of hard-hit Montpelier, Vermont, about the flooding there. But let's start with meteorologist Michelle Grossman and the heat down south.
That's right. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Great to see you. And yeah, we're seeing this heat continuing with that heat dome that you said tacked in place. It is not moving. And we're looking at triple digits for so many today, tomorrow, and really throughout the weekend into early next week. So 78 million people impacted by heat alerts from the west to the south central states, the southeast, the southwest. We're looking at excessive heat warnings. Phoenix, Las Vegas, you're going to be back into the triple digits once again today. So that extreme heat does continue. Phoenix 112 today. That's 6 degrees above normal for this time of year. 114 in Palm Springs, 107 in Las Vegas. It's really hot, too, in portions of New Mexico, Texas, also Amarillo, 103, 109 in Roswell, and near 100 degrees in Pueblo, Colorado. And then as we go throughout tomorrow, we're going to see those temperatures soar once again into the triple digits, 109 in Las Vegas, 113 in Yuma, 102 in Albuquerque, and 94 degrees in Durango. That's 7 degrees above what they typically feel this time of year. So the heat wave will continue into the weekend, into early next week, too. We're looking at Albuquerque on Saturday and Sunday into the triple digits, 117 on Saturday, also on Sunday in Phoenix. And that's going to be the story. We're going to look at Las Vegas into the triple digits, too, throughout the weekend into early next week, too. Now, we have the heat in place. We have a severe weather threat, too. 18 million people at risk today with winds gusting up to 75 miles per hour. Some really large hail, baseball-sized hail, and a few tornadoes are possible, especially where you see this yellow area. Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, Springfield, St. Louis, Peoria. We're looking at the chance for some really strong storms. As we go throughout tomorrow, we're going to see that risk slide to the east. So then we're talking about portions of the Ohio Valley. So Cleveland to Cincinnati, you could see some strong storms tomorrow. Really gusty winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, damaging hail, and also the chance of an isolated tornado. Tomorrow, also on Thursday, we're going to see some rain into the northeast. Unfortunately, once again, also New England. So the hard-hit areas in Vermont and portions of New England will see a flood threat once again. And that's not just tomorrow. It's going to last into Friday as well. So we're looking at rain falling on really saturated soil. Tomorrow, the heaviest rain from Portland, Maine to Norfolk, Virginia. And that will be the story as we go throughout the weekend, too. We're going to see that rain sticking around. So you guys, we have a couple tough days ahead of us with the heat, also with some stormy weather. We'll talk more about this next hour.
Awesome. Michelle, thank you so much. Now we're going to turn to that historic flooding in Vermont. We want to bring in Jack McCullough. He's the mayor of Montpelier, Vermont. Mayor McCullough, thank you so much for joining us, especially when your town is going through something so tough. First, just describe to us the devastation that you've seen.
Well, it's a real improvement from yesterday, but I can tell you yesterday it was terrible. The streets were flooded. It was like rivers flowing through the main streets of Montpelier, and water flowing into all the businesses downtown. Since then, the water has receded, and now we're faced with a massive cleanup effort. We will start by getting all the mud and debris out of the streets, and then we'll be able to start with the rest of the work, clearing up all the businesses and helping people get back on their feet.
Mr. Mayor, I know the police department, City Hall, fire department, they were all flooded. Obviously, I mean, it's hard enough for first responders to deal with this without their own, places of work being flooded. So how were they able to get to people in need and carry out everything that needed to be done?
Well, we had a tremendous amount of help from other departments. We've had other fire departments and rescue departments from around Montpelier, and I saw a group even from as far away, I think, as South Carolina, who just drove up to provide the help they could. So we had people. Wow. We had swift rescue teams with boats getting people out of their locations if they were stuck, and we've had our fire and police departments at our emergency operations center at our water plant, which is on high ground outside of the city limits.
Oh, incredible to hear about people coming from so far just to help out. Mr. Mayor, I also do want to ask you about the Wrightsville Dam, just upstream from your city, getting dangerously close to capacity. That was a major concern at one point. What is the status there this morning? Is that something that you all are keeping an eye on?
We're keeping an eye on it, but we're definitely feeling better about that. The waters are receding, and we do not expect at this point that it will either overtop the dam or go into the spillway. So I think we're looking pretty good there. Our river level within the city is well below flood stage at this point. Of course, we have rain expected over the next few days, but I'm hoping it's nothing approaching the level we've had this week.
And Mayor McCullough, what resources are available for people who've been impacted by the storm, by the flooding there?
Well, the president has issued an emergency declaration. I've spoken to Senator Welch, who's working with other senators on both sides of the aisle to get supplemental appropriation for FEMA and other emergency services. And so we, as the days progress, we will be getting out all the resources to the businesses and residents so that they can get help getting back on their feet, as I said.
Mayor Jack McCullough, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, and we will be thinking of you and your constituents in your town.
Thank you very much.
Parts of Southern California are also dealing with devastation after a landslide knocked out more than a dozen homes. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is there with the latest.
A community on edge beneath the shattered roofs and cracked walls, with more than a dozen homes still on the move.
You can actually hear the snap, crackle, and pop every minute when you're there.
The LA County Fire Department red tagging 12 homes is unsafe, with 10 actively moving and another 16 under constant watch.
Are you worried about your house?
Oh, yes, of course.
Residents in Rolling Hills Estates, 25 miles south of Los Angeles, started noticing cracks in their homes and on the ground Saturday. Officials say the ground gave way to a landslide, taking 12 homes with it. Weber Yen had just 10 minutes to grab what he could and evacuate his home.
Is there any part of your home that is left standing?
No.
It's still sliding down.
It's 10 foot a day.
The cause is under investigation, pending a geology report.
We don't know how long that these homes are going to continue to move.
But officials say a fissure was found along the destroyed homes, raising suspicions about oversaturation after California's record-breaking winter rainfall.
It's moving quickly. There's nothing to do to stop it, and it's the most shocking, surreal thing I have ever seen.
With parts of homes still tumbling into the ravine behind them, residents urging for accountability.
I'm angry people have dropped the ball. Because there was indication that in April something might have happened, and no one alerted us.
And the real hope here is that all of this extreme land movement is isolated to the homes that you see over my shoulder, but we won't know that until a geological survey is done in this area. Officials say it's expected soon, but until then, homeowners say it's a mystery what happens next. Back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you.
And staying in California, Leslie Van Houten, a follower of Charles Manson, is out on parole this morning. Van Houten was released yesterday after spending more than 53 years behind bars for her role in 2 murders back in 1969. She originally received the death penalty, but that was reversed on appeal, and she received a life sentence with the possibility of parole.
This morning, there are 2 big developments in the federal criminal case against former President Donald Trump. The next court hearing in the case related to his alleged mishandling of classified documents was pushed back until July 18th. That's next Tuesday. That hearing was supposed to happen this Friday. Trump has pleaded not guilty in this case. Also, Trump's lawyers have asked to postpone the case until after the 2024 election. His legal team believes it would be nearly impossible to find an impartial jury in the midst of a presidential campaign.
And in one of the other cases against former President Trump, 2 grand juries were selected in Georgia that will likely decide whether the former president and his allies should face criminal charges for election interference back in 2020.
At the heart of the investigation is the call Trump made to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, suggesting that he could help Trump find enough votes to beat Mr. Biden in that state. Trump says he has done nothing wrong. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas joins us now with more. Danny, good morning. So what happens when this case is presented to the grand jury, and then what happens after the vote?
There are actually 2 grand juries who have been seated, and either one of them could end up actually hearing the Trump documents case. That's why the grand jury was likely seated within about 3 hours, because they probably didn't have to go through all the questions that a petit jury, and that's the jury that goes to trial, petit meaning small and grand meaning large. Grand juries are just large. That's all they are. There are obviously a bunch of other rules about secrecy, but these 2 grand juries, one of which will hear the Trump documents case, and then they will vote true bill or no true bill, yay or nay, and ultimately decide, presumably or hopefully in secret, one way or another, whether or not Trump or anyone else is indicted in Georgia for election interference.
So, Danny, with what we've already seen over the past couple months with the former president, with the New York indictment and a federal indictment, Trump has, of course, been able to continue his bid for the White House. In fact, of course, he's still the front runner. Would that be the case here, too? And then to take it a step further, if something happens in this particular investigation, could he take office if elected?
Of course, yes. This is a major constitutional issue, one that, of course, has never been addressed. And if I were to take a guess, this is the way it would work out. If Trump, say, for example, was on trial or even convicted or even imprisoned at the time he wins the election, if he wins the election and is sworn in all likelihood, the state case, the state prison term would go away during the pendency of his presidency. And the same thing for the federal case. Now, what if the cases are still pending, but he hasn't been convicted? Well, in all likelihood, the federal case goes away on pause, and so does the state case, but for different reasons. The state case because of the supremacy clause, but the net effect is the same. If Trump is elected, these cases go away, and the federal case goes away forever, because what will undoubtedly happen if Trump is elected while the case is pending, or even after he's convicted, or even after he's served a sentence, which would not happen with this timeline, then Trump would simply pardon himself, or if the case is still pending, he could do it in an easier way. He could simply hire an attorney general who is loyal to him, who he knows on the first day at work will dismiss the charges, and then the case goes away.
Danny, real quickly, another legal issue, this one on the civil side of things. Yesterday, the Justice Department announced it no longer plans to defend Trump in a defamation lawsuit brought by E. Jean Carroll. Real quick, what does that mean?
It means that the Biden administration is no longer interested in defending Trump, when during Trump's administration, it wasn't interested in defending Trump. So in some sense, look, the DOJ is independent. That's the way it's supposed to be. But as you can see, sometimes maybe it isn't so independent, because the Biden administration routinely takes positions that it never would have taken, or excuse me, the DOJ never would have taken under Trump. So to that degree, when the DOJ is involved in civil cases, it is arguably a lot more political than it is in criminal cases, when it's, at least we hope, a lot more independent.
All right, Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, a drought causing a state of emergency in one country. But this morning, some people say the water they're being given to drink is making them sick. The new questions about water safety and how the government is responding.
But first, into the rough. PGA Tour officials grilled over plans to merge with a Saudi-backed Gulf Tour, how they're defending the controversial plan under intense pressure from lawmakers.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.